Hi, I'm Phil Anderson and welcome to my channel. I've been a property investor now for over 30 years and I've watched investors continue to make the same common investment mistakes. There's so many dirty tricks in the real estate industry and it's all caught up in a whole heap of sales hype. I want to cut through that sales hype and help investors avoid the common mistakes. I hope you enjoy the following content, but please remember to like and subscribe.
Hey listeners and viewers across the country, and welcome to another episode of Street Smart Property Investing, where we take a look behind the headlines. We see what's going on the ground in the Australian property market today. Now, over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the process of buying around Australia, and those couple of sessions I've been joined by my good mate Mr. Gordon Ruddy, one of the most known and respected property investment advisors in Australia today. He's back with us today, and Mr. Trent Durrington, the Bulldog as I affectionately call him, the guy that safeguards so many people in property, not just investors, but guys like myself that are trying to help many investors navigate safely and effectively through the many property markets that we're targeting at any one time. Today, gentlemen, we're going to have another chat. Now, we've talked over the last couple of weeks about, preparing yourself to enter the market, making sure you know why you want to enter the market. We drilled down a little bit into where would we buy in the market. And, of course, we explored the ingredients that we look for every single time when we're, targeting a particular area to invest. And, of course, the backbone of that was infrastructure and population growth and a range of things that give us what we believe is a very solid short-term and long-term investment, sort of location. But once we find those locations, once we understand those locations, today we want to help the listeners understand how do we target the right property to buy. We had a little chat before this, a coffee before this, and there's a lot of, ingredients in understanding how to buy the right property. Right off the top of the conversation, I would say that the amount of people that get excited about a location and then go in and treat it like they're buying their own family home rather than treating it as how do I find the right property to invest in, that difference can separate everybody. I've seen people find some really great locations and then stuff it up because they just buy the wrong property. Now, Trent, through your eyes, for the listeners, what would you say, are some of the things that come straight to mind when it comes to it's a great market, but what would you suggest to them are core ingredients they need to be aware of, making sure they buy the right property?
Well, I feel there's a few layers there, mate, but, understanding the market within the market, the estates, the pick estates within those markets. And also, initially when with that investment, potentially looking long term, but what are the people renting? What are they looking for? What do they want? So those conversations initially with the property managers in the market, try and understand who is the premier property manager in that market, and look at their portfolio of rental properties and try and understand what has been the best performer as far as low vacancies and obviously achieving the most yield. That's as simple as amount of bedrooms, configuration, yard, proximity to services, a whole range of different items like that.
Touched on a couple of great things there already. From, a lot of novice investors would walk into a market and think straight away to go to talk to a real estate agent, go and have a talk to someone about what's for sale, what would they suggest. No disrespect to real estate agents, we know that we need them, and particularly when you're selling a property, you need them. That's where they really shine because they do serve the vendor, they serve the seller. So as an investor going in and talking to a real estate agent, typically you would be in a situation where you would have to, question who are they there to serve? Are they trying to look after the people they've got as the listings that they have, or do they have the ability to advise you as a property investor what it is that you should be buying in that market? And I think the ones that can serve you best are the ones that have the strongest rent rolls, the strongest amount of properties that they're renting out. And we tend to go, let's just talk straight to the property managers in those particular offices. Let's talk to the property managers and help them narrow down exactly what it is that like you said, is in the most demand, going to give us the best rental, situations, rental returns, and also where to avoid in the markets, because where you started was which estate, and you can get into the right area but be 5 minutes one way and get a very different experience to 5 minutes in a different direction.
Yeah, that's right. And that's just being on the ground and understanding the owner occupied or investment ratio, the mix. It's having that relationship with the developers, with the property managers, and being on the ground there for, years and really understanding, where those drivers are.
Mate, the reason why I think it's such a great fit for property investors, that relationship with a property manager, is because they get left holding the baby, really, right? So a salesperson, a real estate agent could sell you a property and that's the end of that transaction. But a property manager, when they take over, when you get advice off them and you buy that property, they're then left responsible. They're left managing that property. They don't want a poor performing property. They don't want problem tenants. They don't want unhappy landlords. They want to make sure that they're left in the best possible position. So in my experience, there's a lot to gain for them to give you some really good advice.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Phil. 100%. They even will have opinions about who's the builder, the type of inclusions, products that are used, the warranties that come with those products, because they want that property to be low maintenance as well. It means it's going to be seamless for them as a property manager. So that is a good point. Yeah, they're going to be holding your hand for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, mate, your role, the importance of your role has really, I think, escalated enormously since the government changed their laws around negative gearing in 2019, really making the difference between buying an old property and a new property even greater. Now, today, as a property investor, and Gordon will be one to help us understand this even better when it comes to the numbers, but investors that take the time to understand the numbers, they do understand now that the best benefits come from brand new properties, and you don't get anywhere near the benefits from an older existing property. And the reason why that's kind of really, helped your knowledge and the role that you play really shine in recent years is a lot of investors now need to buy brand new properties. And when they've got to buy brand new properties, that's a different world for a lot of investors. They don't understand how to pick the right builder, how much the property should cost to construct, how the contract should look. It's now a 2-part contract. Do you want to touch on a bit of that stuff?
Yeah, well, it's... I get surprised that a lot of people don't understand a 2-part contract.
Real estate agents don't understand.
No, that's what I mean.
I would say 90% of them don't understand.
Yeah, that's and we've been privy to that.
Absolutely,
and still, it still amazes me. But that's okay. They don't. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
But buying new, the benefits in our opinion and our experience by far outweigh buying existing. And there's many layers to that. Obviously, Gordy can touch on the tax advantages, but from a landlord's experience and as far as buying new and having an investment that you're not, having to maintain as far as a whole range of maintenance items that pop up with existing or the warranties that come with new. And the new areas and new estates typically have the great infrastructure as far as parks, swings, playgrounds, all those types of things which typically attract the young families that you're hoping to, rent your properties to. So, that's just touching on the advantages of new, but that's certainly how we feel, the most sound investment.
So, mate, look, one of the key roles that I look for in yourself, and because we're working together more closely today than every year it gets closer and closer because of the fact that it is becoming a model where there's a range of things that need to be respected by an investor, they need a team around them to make really sound decisions. And there are specialties in each of those roles, right? And the skills that you have are certainly skills I don't have. I don't understand, I can't look at a set of plans and a development site and a whole range of the elements around the construction, with anywhere near the level of understanding as to what you do. You take that real, that onboarding, that initial engagement of a builder, mate, you take that really seriously. I've seen how much research you'll go into picking the right builder up front.
100%, mate. It's and I actually feel like the builders I use, you
screen them, mate.
Yeah, I screen them, but I need to know who the owner is, who's the principal of that building company, what's their background, what's their integrity. Things
happen, mate. Right,
get
things
awkward,
happen, and
I'll pick up the phone and I go straight to the owner of the business.
Seen you do it.
Yeah. So otherwise, I don't feel comfortable not dealing with the owner of the business.
Mate, there's sort of this sweet spot, and it's unfortunate for a lot of investors that they, probably don't get, the leverage that you get now because you've earned the right after decades of doing this. But, the little builders, it's so hard to expect, them to be able to smooth out things that can pop up and things that they didn't know would occur, and changes to contracts, and all of these things that can happen when you're at a small scale. Then they can get too big. They can get so big that all they want to do is just pump out stuff and you're just a number, et cetera, et cetera. But there is this sweet spot that I've seen, and they're still doing a large scale amount of properties, but they're still boutique enough that they care, and they'll let you kind of, set some standards and put expectations.
Yeah, early on in building a relationship with the builder, we have certain criteria that we need. And you're right about that sweet spot for a builder. We see some guys that the volume gets too much and then the quality starts to lack, customer service. But, that sweet spot is that builders do have items that pop up throughout construction, which are unforeseen. But typically the smaller builder would pass those costs on to the purchaser,
sure.
The client. The relationships we have, our builders absorb those costs.
Yeah.
They understand this is an investment. You need our investors are doing the numbers on fixed prices. They have buffers, but those buffers in some instances are limited and can't be, if there's an extra $10,000 retaining wall or an item like that, our investors can't absorb those costs.
Yeah.
So with our relationships, our builders do absorb those costs, but it's got to be the right builder.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because of that sweet spot and that scale, they're so well mapped out. They know their number. They know the volume they're going to do. They've got those key people in each department, which a little guy can't do. He's trying to wear many hats. The key people are got a balance of systems focused, but also customer care focused. And then that system allows all of those major milestones to be easily tracked, so we know where they're up with every stage. It can be totally turnnkeyed for a property investor. And it can be mitigated, as far as any movement of the risk factor doesn't have to change. It can be really well controlled, and you can keep an eye over the process. You've got photos at every stage. You've got systems that you can tap into at any time. You've got people you can talk to. There's a real quality control to the way that you manage the process.
That's right. I guess that comes back to buying existing property and buying a two-part contract property, buying new and going through the construction. If everything is shaped as far as the contracts and the process, if it's all done right, it's as little stress as buying a one-part existing property.
Yeah, but mate, who would have thought? Mate, we go back, you and I go back a long time as far as investors, and Gordy and I have been doing for over 30 years now, which is crazy. But you go back 15 years ago, it was just an investor on his own, you know what I mean, and putting things together and going and coordinating this and organising a build package and pretty much designing the build. And I just go, wow, it's just changed so much. And today we're all too busy, mate. We don't, mate, people want to know the numbers up front. They want to make a sound decision up front, and then they want to make sure that the goalposts aren't going to move. The builder's got great reputation. They're going to get a great quality product. It's all turnkeyd for them so that they can hit the button, and even though there's construction required to maximise all the numbers and get all the advantages, it's turnkeyd, and they come out the other end and, there's no room for error.
No, that's right. That's right. It's that's exactly that.
Mate, it's a bloody recipe, though. I see your spreadsheets you work off, and there's a lot of checkpoints.
There's a lot of checkpoints, a lot of things to track, but I guess that's what I do.
That's the thing, right? And it looks it's normal to you, but I look at it and go, oh gosh, Mr. Ruddy, Gordy.
Yes, Phil.
Look, mate, we talked a little bit about talking to the property managers, and you and I kind of touched on that and discovered that probably 15 years ago. We started doing that. We started going into areas together and investigating areas we thought were great emerging hotspots. That property manager conversation was kind of a breakthrough for us. And that had to do with like floor plans, inclusions, how we can get an extra $20 a week, how can we be, when people are putting in their rental applications, how can we be the most desirable property, squeeze an extra $20 here and there out of the rent. That's been a game changer, right?
Yeah, the property manager, as you and Trent have alluded to, it's such an important ingredient. So, as you mentioned, we'd go in an area and we would literally interview them because it's not just about using a property manager; it's getting the right property manager.
Sure.
Because, my goal for all of my investors is to have what I call a great landlord experience. I've talked about it before, and for me, a great landlord experience is one that's, it's like a set and forget. So you need a property manager that's going to manage the property for you. You don't want to have to manage the property. You want to, you want basically get an email at the end of the month that says, this is what we collected, this is in the bank, this is what we've paid, and you flick that onto the property manager. If they do happen to ring you, then take that call straight away. But with the right property manager, they're going to be few and far between, and they take a lot of the stress out of being a landlord.
Yeah, you just on that property manager thing, and you're right. I can remember multiple locations where we'd always go into and have 3 appointments lined up so that we could talk to the 3 key or main property investment teams in that market. And we judge it based on a gut feel, really, as to how engaged they were, whether they shared our passion for protecting the investor and kind of having a great experience in that landlord situation. But I think it gets forgotten a bit because there's a typical, sort of fee that you're always used to paying out of your rent for the property management service. But when you think about it, it's really, they're like an employee. And they should be prepared to play that role and protect you from so many things.
They're like imagine if you owned a business, which an investment property is like a business, it's probably said very often when you're a business owner, what's the most important thing is to work on your business, not in the business. Have good management teams inside your business running that business for you. And it's exactly the same with a property. A property manager he's your general manager of your property. He should take all the hassles. Pay a good property manager will pay your council rates for you. They'll, if there's stratas involved, they'll organise all that. You don't need to worry about any of that if you've got the right property manager in place. So.
Yeah, so as a landlord, and the thing we discovered, mate, was we could reverse engineer what to buy based on those conversations. We could say how many bedrooms, what are they looking for, what are the key ingredients that the best quality, kind of most in-demand property type by the most desirable tenants. Can you describe that property to us? Can you describe with great detail that property, the inclusions, the floor plan, where in the local township or local region would that property be? What sort of rent would it attract? How would we be the most desirable? What are the little things that would make it a little bit more desirable than the others? Gosh, that discovery for us 15 years ago, and the way we now use that as a standard process, makes so much common sense, right? It's just common sense.
One thing we're not talking about too is, sometimes we will sacrifice cash flow based on a market, an estate, an area, and the type of product that we feel like is probably going to maximise some capital gain in the short term. So where I'm going with that is that we may go for a higher level of specification.
Sure.
We might go for a double-storey house with a pool, and have comparables in that market that on completion might show 100, 200 grand profit. Again, that depends where you are in the cycle, what that product is, people's borrowing capacity, and understanding, okay, what are the effects on the cash flow. So again, it's
mate, I guess that's a good one to draw on, because at the moment, if we just use southeast Queensland, which is bloody hot right now, and the people that we're talking to, and I know that we've got a very diverse range of people that are putting their hand up. I've never seen as many high net wealth individuals put their hand up as we're seeing at the moment. People that are realising there's just nowhere to stick their cash and get a good return, and property is so strong, and there's a lot of confidence in the market. The markets are moving. Stock supply is so low, demand is so high, the risk profile around it is, interest rates so low. The risk profile around property at the moment, I don't think they've ever been lower, the risk profiles. So the investors that are coming in, they are quite diverse, and the example that, as you mentioned, the property that may be a little bit more specced up, and the pool and, etc., that's an actual example we've got at the moment where there's a particular market that I think is one of the sexiest estates in Australia, and the client that you're helping out is purchasing a property, and because you're buying per square metre, you're mate, the guard dog, right? So you're there basically going, this block of land is worth X amount per square metre, the build is worth X per square metre, in that square metre rate we should get this list of inclusions, the valuation should dictate that this and this, and it's a very process orientated exercise based on all that experience you have. And yet 2 streets away, the same size block, the same size house that's built, and it's in an emotional market with the owner occupier buying it, is selling for $200,000 or more, higher than what you're doing a new build.
No, that's
crazy,
right.
Right? I've never seen it quite like that before.
Yeah, well, that's just and depending on where the cycle is, these things do happen. You don't see a lot of spec builders anymore. Spec builders typically a smaller builder comes along, buys a block of land, builds a nice house and sells it. He's not only gaining his building margin, he's also chasing development profit. That's your typical spec builder. But we've got investors that are investing in house and land, have that opportunity in the market at the moment to capitalise on a really becomes a little mini development, even though it's just a house and land package.
Yeah, so that property package that I saw you coordinating with, that couple of $100,000 difference, that kind of I guess gives an example of maybe a smaller volume of investors that are looking at that kind of blue chip stock. But still, the numbers are great. The cash flow positive, all of that stuff is surprising how good that looks at the moment. That still looks great. Yeah. But I would say that percentage of people's maybe, less than 10% that are able to go into that budget. Most of I would say the sweet spot, or the widest part of the kind of the meat in the sandwich of what people are really targeting is probably something that Gordy sees much more regularly. But we're still seeing packages, and I saw another one of these, which was a 550 kind of level property, 550,000, which is really a affordable level property, 200 plus a week positive cash flow, even on, as you were doing numbers on 100%. What do you say?
Well, I think what's really exciting at the moment is there's a generation of people really that have got the opportunity today with how their family home has increased in value. They've got access to that equity. They've got interest rates lower than they've ever been before. A forecast of interest rates staying low for the foreseeable future. They've got an opportunity to invest. They've never done it before, but what we've got at the moment with the skills that that Trent has working with the property managers we've spoken about, what people want, even though it's such a great environment, people still looking for certainty. That's number one for them. They want to know. So with stuff that Trent does, they're not going to build a home and then find out, oh, well, to tenant this home now, we're going to need air conditioning. We're going to need to put this in. We're going to need to put that in. With all the work that you guys just spoke about, we know that when that property's finished and completed, it's got all the things that the tenant
not
wants.
a cent to
There's
spend.
no more money to spend. They're not going to get stuck, delayed and extended periods of holding costs. None of that's going to happen with the work that starts at the top with you, but which really Trent's specialty is making sure that when my investors come to the pointy end, that they know with certainty that I've covered everything, my costs, what I budgeted for is there.
But and you're right, it is a team thing, and people can't underestimate the need for this team and the specialised services that can really, take the risk out of it. From your side of things, you're putting them in the right pathway, though. It's one thing for Trent. Trent's not focused on so much the investors. Is this investor buying, the right property for them? He's just making sure that the property is the right property for an investor. And then it's kind of your job and somewhat my role and the way that we all work together where we go, this is the sort of stock that I think you should be targeting, right? And for you do it via, proven, sort of processes and software that allows you to be able to allow for everything and to be able to tap it in and understand the tax they're paying and just really, with great detail, know what that cash flow is going to be. Touching back to that $550,000 stock price, I saw Trent putting one of those packages together, and I think it might have been one of your clients, and as he was putting that 550 pack together, we noticed that the same size block of land in that case, the same size build, once again, 2 or 3 streets away, the previous stage of the estate, and these estates are just full of owner-occupiers. This is a special thing about the market at the moment. You're not buying in rental estates. You're buying in estates at the moment, if you're buying in the right areas, where it's just about all, if not entirely, homeowners. That could be another 10 or 20% of benefit of growth, I think. I think that's a special thing investors are failing to grasp how powerful that is as a landlord to own an investment property in an owner-occupied community. But because there's so much competition for that damn stock at the moment, that same size property a couple of streets away has got 100 grand's difference, in it as well. So it's not just that niche stock, that higher end stock. It's all stock that's being built. If you can get the land and you can put the deal together in the right markets, quite often you're already made money before you get the keys.
Yeah.
Oh,
Before you get the keys, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
well, we've got examples of that with, all over. Guys, and it's funny. Like, one of our clients was buying a property in Port Macquarie it's probably 8 months ago when they started the process, and at the time, they thought, is that, it was a lot of money, and it was, and I look back now, and easily. There'd be 100 to 100, and it's not even finished. It's about, I was talking to the customer yesterday, they've got about 5 weeks to completion, and they're just so excited that they realise that they've picked up $125,000 before they've made the 4th progress payment on the build.
It's crazy.
Where 6 months ago it was, I'm wondering if am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
There's no doubt now.
Well, we've got plenty of examples of that where clients have secured house and land package, split contract for $1,000 deposit with land registration being out 6 to 9 months.
And they haven't even settled yet.
They've actually effectively, for $1,000, turned it into probably a $75,000 gain, and they're still not unconditional. There's some good stories.
No,
it comes back to picking the right areas, the right estates, and it's not by luck.
No. And the thing is, the other thing that is very obvious in the market, and the reason why we've got so many people chasing us at the moment is because people just can't do it on their own at the moment. You can't, if you're buying an existing house, of course. That's why property prices are rising like they are, and we're seeing that difference between building or buying an existing is there's so much competition for an existing home. And then if you want to, well, the obvious choice would be, well, yeah, okay, we'll build then. Good luck getting the land. If you can get a block of land, you're not in really the hot markets. You're in, good markets potentially, but not the hottest of markets. You just cannot get the damn land. So they're snookered all round.
Yeah, no, they are. They are. It's but it's they're all good problems. And that's but our clients understand that, so they lean on us, secure them the right package, and set up the right finance solutions for them, and give them the right strategy, and and it's then it's time in the market, and it's happy days for them.
One last thing I would say too, guys, and we should wrap up a few comments and just make sure we get a good summary for the listeners. But another thing I think investors need to watch out for at the moment, because the rental market is so damn tight, because there is such an undersupply, and I'm talking tens of thousands of houses, if not hundreds of thousands of houses. We are short at the moment, and there's this push to move to regional. There's another $5 million campaign trying to get 20% of Sydney siders to move out of Sydney, and we're just seeing this transition to the regionals, and the regionals are struggling to keep up. Now, I'm talking the big regionals. We talked about that last podcast, the big ones with the airports and the hospitals and all of the big infrastructures, the universities, etc., etc. This window is about the rise of the regionals, and markets like the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, they're still regionals, right? It's a fine line because they're all cities, they're secondary cities, but they're still technically known as regionals. Now, the thing is, in those markets, because that rental market is so low, we're starting to see, and we'll potentially put together a podcast just on this topic, but we're starting to see a new style of property emerge and a new way that renters are looking at, the property market, and investors are now getting 6%, 7%, even 8% rental yields. 8% rental yields out of residential property, the lowest risk investment in the property space and the highest yield I've ever seen.
In growth areas, it's not just yield. So typically yield has come from buying in an area where traditionally there hasn't been great capital growth, and the property prices are they're really low because the market hasn't moved for many years, and so they're buying $100,000 and $200,000 properties, and the yield is high because they might be getting $300 a week or whatever, but their asset base isn't really growing. But we're talking about those yields in places where they're going to get that capital growth as well. It's a two-edged sword.
Or alternatively, to get a yield up in that 8% kind of category, you would have been talking commercial property. And in the commercial space, of course, you're going to have a different risk profile. The banks aren't going to lend as much, you know what I mean? There's certainly, a question mark over how many tenants are there to replace the tenant if they move out. You can have 6 months, 12 months of a vacant space. Whereas in the residential property space, there are hundreds of people putting in applications for every property at the moment. So we are talking a very different risk profile, but that 8% yield, 7%, 8% yield, I think is, that's going to be a game changer. And I think we should talk a little bit more about these emerging strategies in future podcasts. But just to summarise today, just for the listeners, so we can close out this session, the biggest things I think we would all agree on is going into a market, of course, doing the research about which market, as we discussed last time, and understanding those key factors that are going to drive growth across that region. But inside of that region, really smart to start with a property manager, screen them, understand who really gets what you're trying to achieve, and understand what they would describe as being the optimal property, the floor plan, the location, what tenant you're going to attract. Make sure you can really, foresee what your rental experience is going to be, what your landlord experience is going to be. Get that really detailed description. Utilise the service of someone like Trent that can help you understand, well, who would build that property? Who could be the right builder that's going to produce the right product, give you the right experience. What's the true cost of doing that? Are you really getting what you're paying for? Have you got a real turnkey package? Are you going to get to the end and make sure that you haven't got a cent to pay and it's going to match up with that other? And someone can't move the goalposts during that time, right? That's probably, what else have we got to put
So,
in there?
mate, there's a lot of time that you just mentioned there. So, unless you're retired and you've got a lot of time and you can do it yourself and a lot of research, there might be 6 months' worth of work there and the market's already gone. Otherwise, put your hand up and get someone to turnkey it for you.
Oh, mate, it's it. Like, it's not even a comparison anymore. And we see the ones that, you know the types, right? And let's be respectful here, but the investors. Should be right, mate. I can take care of this, whatever, right? And we've had exact examples of this, and we can picture people immediately as we talk about people have come back to us and gone, I reckon I can buy something there for 20 grand less than that. They can see a package advertised or whatever, but they're not comparing apples with apples.
No.
Describe some of the things that you've seen happen, mate.
Well, exactly that. They'll go on to realestate.com and they'll see a package advertised for whatever the figure is, and it might be, as you say, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000
less than what Trent's gone through and done a proper analysis of a property.
And then when we've put them side by side, we go, that's missing, that's missing, that's missing. There's no guarantee on that. There's clauses in that contract that allows the builder to
move
charge
the
extra.
goalposts.
Exactly, and we just can't afford them. When we did the physical exercise on those two, it turned out without allowing for moving the goalposts as far as
what the possibilities are.
Just with the physical things that were missing, it ended up, I think it was about $15,000 or $16,000. What Trent had found was better than the thing that was advertised as a complete package.
And you're dealing with a builder that may have a question mark over their integrity. You're dealing with a range of unknowns and the ability for the target to move. And, one of the big things that's always stuck in my mind is a sign that I saw out the back of a builder's, staff room, and it was variations equals profits. And what they're hoping is that, you don't do what Trent does, which is put together a fully turnkey fixed price package that's got every detail locked in. They're hoping that, our wives, I should say my wife, gets involved and says, I'd like this and I'd like to change that. And they want those variations because that's where the cost of the variation and the ability for them to keep moving and adding, some more facts.
In very simple terms too, I call it bait advertising from some of those project builders.
Definitely that too.
You drive up any highway or you can see a house starting at 150,000. You just go, and it's a beautiful picture of a turnkey, beautiful yard, and
But there's no slab.
No.
No driveway.
But that's
no landscaping.
That's just their strategy to get them walking into their display home. So that's that model. But
mate, another one I'm seeing, another one at the moment, because land is so hard to get. I get annoyed when I get onto a land developer's website and they say, lots of land from 219,000 or whatever the numbers are. You think, wow, that'd be good, right? Now, there was a really ugly block of land that was in stage 1 7 years ago that they sold for 219,000. All the rest of the land is now high 300s or whatever the difference is, but they're still able to advertise that it's from that one lot of land now. It's, there's a lot of clickbait out there. There's a lot of marketing stuff that's just designed to get people, on their lists and get them talking. But that can be a big time waster too. And opportunities can be moving past that you don't even see because you're focused on the wrong stuff.
Yeah, you can't. It's time in the market, and you can't jeopardise getting into the market. You've got to have, that knowledge, or have someone give you the knowledge. So you can't lose time.
Good chat, guys. Good chat. Well, hopefully we've shared a bit of information there about the processes we use to help people, select the right property in the markets. Next week, what we'll touch on is how do we control the contracts? How do we pay the right price every time? What are the things that we would look for in a contract? What would that experience look like as a purchaser? What advice would we have for investors to make sure they protect themselves every time they're, securing a property in a great investment market? But thanks for joining me, guys.
Good on you. Thanks for having me, Phil.
Cheers.
Gorda.
Thanks, Trent.
Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and also feel free to leave me a question. I look forward to helping as many property investors as possible. Take care, and we'll talk soon.